Welcome to the Hillbilly Chicken Ranch. I'm Susan, your hostess, and today we are in my kitchen because we're canning 25. We have a lot of canning going on this time of year, so we're in our canning mode. Things are coming in and out of the garden very, very rapidly, and my tomatoes are almost done, and it's not even through the month of July yet. Probably this coming weekend we're going to be pulling up tomato plants because they're just not producing anything else. So I wanted to share with you about some canning jar lids that I'm using that are unconventional for the home canner, but they are safe. I've mentioned it in a couple of different videos. The Amish use them, people around the world use them. They're used in commercial canning, but the government agencies in the United States has not caught on to using this, and they give you a blurb telling you why you shouldn't use one-piece canning lids. Well, I've got two different lids here. I'm going to show you one of them, and this is got a button on it. Can y'all see that button there? You might be able to see it better from this side, but it pops. So this would be for pressure canning, and you can use it in water bath canning, but you don't have to. But this is the preferred lid for pressure canning in my home. I like it because I know that it's going to seal on my jar. The three-letter agency, government agency, says they don't get enough air circulation, you know, where they can pull liquid out or put liquid in the jar if needed. But these work perfectly well for us. And then this lid here is a flat lid. There's no button, and it's got a nice gasket in. Now, ever since Kavovo hit, when we couldn't find the flats to can with, I started using the button type canning lid for everything because that was the only one I could find at the time. And you know it's sealed because what? That button goes down when it seals. These you will know are sealed because they will be flat and you'll hear them pop. They ping just like a regular canning lid. So I canned our Louisiana purple pod green beans. I'm going to show you a clip of that. And I'm getting ready to can my tomatoes. I've got enough here for 14 quarts pulled, and my recipes are coming out of the Ball Complete Book of Home Preserving. The tomatoes are hot packed. I like the hot pack method. I don't add water to them. I use the juices from my tomatoes. And it's on page 354 for a water bath canner. Make sure I got the right one. Yeah, that's for the water bath canner. And then for the green beans, a few pages over, on page 386 is the recipe for canning green beans. I am not adding salt to my green beans because my husband's blood pressure is up, so we're trying to stay away from some of the salt. But however, I will be adding salt and citric acid to my tomato product. So let me show you that, and I'm going to get that canned off camera. You can follow the recipes in your Ball Complete Book of Home Preserving. And I've got my big stainless steel pot. We recently purchased this pot, and I've got my tomatoes over here, so I'm going to show you what they look like. I'm adding 16 quarts and 1 pint of green beans to my cabinet today in my pantry. Y'all, that will equal 39 quarts, well, 40 quarts, because I had another half pint that I canned previously. So 40 quarts of beans so far out of our garden this year. They look wonderful. And I'm using the one-piece lids here. These have the pop in the middle of the button. I'll show you one of them here in just a second. So that is a button in the middle. Can you hear the noise? These are good for canning in your pressure canner. Got these from the Amish. They actually come from the Arkansas glass, and so are my jars, Arkansas glass. Real easy to use. I know they're not approved by that 3-letter agency here in the States, but y'all, your food lasts so much longer with these lids, I do believe, in your pantry. So we're purchasing them. And I probably will be purchasing these in the future. Now, with the standard canning jars, sometimes I'll have to tighten the lid when they come out of the canner. I'll wait a few minutes and then I'll just check to make sure that that lid is on there secure. And I have all of these sealed with no problems. Didn't have to turn the lids or anything on them, just to make sure that they seal good. But that's it. We got a total of 40 quarts. Now each quart holds 2 pounds of beans. So there's 16 quarts. That's 32 pounds, plus the pint holds another pound. So 33 pounds of beans. That is approximately 1 bushel of beans right there. And that's from our garden. So 3.5 gallons would equal 14 quarts of your tomato product, and it is almost full to the top of the lid. I've got 2 gallons back there, and then I've got 3.5 gallons here. I've pulled my equipment. I've got my canning lids ready. I just need to pull my citric acid and my salt. I've got my pot ready. We're going to get started with this canning. So the tomatoes have already been peeled and cored, and of course I've crushed them with my hands, and it may be a little hard getting them out of the jar at first because they get stuck up in the jar. You may have to use your fingers to get them out. So I will use a half gallon and a half gallon plus a gallon for the first batch, and I'm going to do them in 2 batches. I've had my jars sterilizing in the water bath canner. And I've got that one about halfway, and if I need to add more tomatoes to it, I certainly can do that. And I store these in the refrigerator until I'm ready to can, usually overnight. So let's get this one into the canner. Alrighty. Get my towel over here. I need to wipe my hands. So I'm going to turn these on and I'm going to get them heated through. And I'm going to keep an eye on them to make sure that they're not scorching in my pot. Then we're going to get our canning jars pulled out of our hot water bath that's back here. And we're going to get those canned up, and then we'll move on to the second batch. As these are processing, once these are processed in my hot water bath, I'm going to sterilize the rest of my jars, get my tomatoes heated up and ready to go. And we'll be back when all of this is done. It takes about 45 minutes for this recipe in a hot water bath. Once the steam starts coming out around your lid back here, you know that you can start your timer. So we're just going to get these heated up and get them in the jars. So these are the Arkansas glass jars that kind of look like mayonnaise jars. And I'm going to use 1 teaspoon per quart or 1/2 teaspoon per pint. And since I'm using quart jars, that is my measurement. And my citric acid, I'm going to double check. Is 1/2 teaspoon of citric acid or 1/4 teaspoon for a pint. And if you're using bottled lemon juice, you would use 1 tablespoon per pint, 2 tablespoons per quart. So I'm going to be using 1/2 teaspoon. It's always good to double check your recipes. And your citric acid and your salt should always go in your jars at the beginning, at the very bottom, before you add your tomato product to them. So we're going to get these started. They've been heating up. They're supposed to heat through about 5 minutes. And these have a lot of juice on them, so I'm going to use the juice in place of the water. Now, the ball book tells you you've got to cook it longer because you've got juice in there. I don't think that's true. I've been canning for a long time, but that's just my preference. You do in your kitchen. It's your kitchen, your rules. It's my kitchen, my rules. So we're going to get this jar filled up to the 1/2 inch space. And we may have to take a little bit out after we debubble. Okay, my jars are at a 1/2 inch headspace. I've got my 5% vinegar here and my clean rag. Just going to set that in the sink for a moment. We're going to do 1 jar. I'm going to show you how I apply the lid. I'm going to wipe the rims of my jar, make sure that there's no product on the rims of the jar, no fingers on the jar, rim, etc. And then I'm going to take my lid. Now I've poured a little bit of hot water over these. It's not necessary, but I do it anyway. And we're just going to apply that lid just like we would a regular lid, but we're not doing the 4 fingers, 2 fingers, and so forth. Then we're going to close this until it is finger tight, and then we can put it back into our canner. And I'm going to continue to finish these out. We'll be back when our product is done. But that lid will probably seal coming out of the canner. 14 quarts, 28 pounds of tomatoes from our garden. Another successful canning adventure is completed. Please note that this is my kitchen, my rules. If you try using these lids, do your research before you try them. Hey friends, thank you so much for watching my channel. Thank you for the many comments, the likes, the friendships, and for sharing this content out. Take a moment and watch all of the advertisements because that is how I get monetized and get paid. I appreciate each and every one of you for your time and your patience. And y'all, I have this special content over here I think you might like.